It's now 7 p.m., Tuesday, January 8th, 2019. I'd like to call the Sutton Board of Selectmen meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I go into the public forum tonight, I would like to have a moment of silence for Jim Malley, who passed away this past weekend. He was our civil engineer and a Board of Health agent who helped out on several important issues within the town of Sutton while serving in those positions. He will be missed. May he rest in peace. Now would be public forum, limited to 5 minutes per topic. Discussion or comments about town employees or agency members shall be avoided so as not to violate individuals' rights. Is anyone here for public forum? Next would be the Board of Selectmen minutes from December 18th, 2018.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the Board of Selectmen's minutes from December 18th, 2018 as presented.
Second.
The motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Next on the agenda would be a change of owner from Five Guys Burgers and Fries. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't see the representative that is going to speak on behalf of the company here tonight. At this point, we can either pass over this and give them a few more minutes, or ultimately it's a change in ownership, and the company is now Mass 5G LLC DBA Five Guys Burgers and Fries. They are now out of Utah. This individual that was supposed to come tonight and maybe will come later is representing the Massachusetts share of those restaurants. The Board of Health currently has the new owner as the representative and contact. We did give the police chief the information. He, looked into his background. It's perfectly clear. I don't see any reason to oppose this. There's no change in the Five Guys restaurant. It's the same restaurant, same burger, same fries. It's just a change in ownership. But that's as much as I know, unfortunately. It's up to the board whether you want to pass over this or approve it. We're expecting the representative, I think is Jason Nance, to attend, but he's maybe running a little late.
If we may, Jim, I would like to pass over it and put it in front of the town manager's update.
Okay, fine.
And give him a few more minutes if it's okay with the rest of the board members.
That's a good idea.
Next one would be appointments to the planning board vacancies. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board knows, we recently had a member of the planning board step down, Wayne Whittier, who did a great job for the planning board, and we want to thank him for his service. And obviously, we had a vacant position. We posted that position. We actually had 3 candidates apply for that position. The planning board met last night and reviewed all 3 candidates, and they made a recommendation. I believe you have that recommendation in front of you. And so it's up to the board on how you would like to proceed.
All come up, Dave?
Yeah.
Why don't you all come up? Michael
Gannon
Gannon,
first.
Kyle Burgesson, and Bill Telcott. There's another chair over there if someone wants to get it.
How are you going to arrange this?
Oh.
All right.
Mr. Gagan, maybe?
Yeah, Mr. Gannon, and what we do is, we always ask, please, for you, identify yourself with your address, and then would you please tell the board a little bit about yourself and why you want this position?
Sure. My name is Mike. My name is Michael Gagan. I live at 8 Fox Run in Sutton here. I am interested in this position because I'm hoping to give back to the town. A few months ago, I had run into the planning board, Bobby Lodges, who I have known in the past, serving with him on some boards in Worcester, telling him I had an interest in doing something in Sutton. I've been in Sutton a little under 5 years. He suggested meeting with the planning director. I met with hers. He kind of explained some different boards to me. And at that time, she said there was an alternate position available on the planning board. So I've gone the last 3 months to about 6 or 8 meetings, getting a feel for what they do and what issues come up in front of them. My background is I work for the Mass State Auditor's Office. I'm a senior field auditor. I've been there a little under 20 years. So that's kind of why I'm here. I think I can give back. Seems like an interesting board, a lot of issues come up, and I think it's a good time for me to become more involved with the town. Very interested in doing that. I had been involved, started a community development corporation for 20 years in Worcester, Green Island, Vernon Hill, which became the Canal District, which is now where the Pawtucket Red Sox are gonna be moving, and kind of some of our efforts from years ago, getting some development in there, is really paying off, so kind of proud of that. Along with Bobby Lodges, we had both been on that board. I've also been a member of the Worcester County St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee for the last 15 years. I'm still a member. So I think one of the things when I talked to the board last night was, when I do join something, I stick with it. I show up all the time, and I'm not kind of someone that's gonna leave quickly, you know, so I think they talked about that being important, so I'm excited about the opportunity of getting involved, and seems like an interesting way to do it, so.
Great.
Thank you.
Do you want to hold our questions until the rest, and then we'll have the others speak now?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Talcott?
William Talcott, 17 Marsh Road. I lived in town for 35 years. I have a undergraduate degree in public administration and a master's in accounting. I spent 6 years in public accounting with a Big 8 firm. Since then, I've been private practice, but I spend 90% of my time, I own a liquor store in Worcester. I was on the planning board in the mid-1990s until 2004, because I remember when the Red Sox won the championship. That was when I got off. I was a chairman when we had the Home Depot issue in front of the town, and I essentially got burnt out from it. And I was at a different point in my life where I wanted to spend more time with my family, so I resigned from the board after that, and now I'm at a different point, and I do miss, I miss being involved, and I would like to get involved again, and I miss the challenge, but I also, I used to learn something, you know, on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis when, you know, we did have something with someone who pop up. But I do want to note that at last night's meeting, I would like to be considered for one of the associate positions, because, you know, my time right now is still a little tight, but maybe, you know, down the road, things will loosen up and I'll have more time to spend on it, so I would like to ease into it in that regard. And if it works out with me and I can still make the meetings and it works with the board, I think that's the route I would like to take. I would just like to make that note. Thank you very much.
And Kyle?
Kyle Bergston, 11 Andrews Drive. Not as seasoned as these two in boards and stuff, but I'm looking for a way to give back to town and learn. I'd also like to be one of the associate members, just because I think they have more to offer than me, and I have a lot I can learn just from attending the meetings. I've been going to the meetings for a year now, while filming, and yeah. Don't have the history, so.
And, we'll go around to our board, or if they have any questions. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, all of you. Thank you very much. Before I get going, I'd like to, since we're talking about it, just take a chance to thank Wayne for all the years that he spent on the committee. It's interesting because the committee has been really stable for a long period of time. And then, you know, in a short period of time, we've had 2 vacancies on the committee. So, you know, I think we've talked about it before, but having these associate members is really a great value to the town and to the committees. So Wally Baker stepped up, and now he's on the committee. He sat as an associate member for a long period of time. And, you know, I've talked to him about it since he's been on, and really just feels like that time as an associate member allowed him to sort of hit the ground running and really understand the complexities of that particular job. There's really a lot of technical details that go into that. So, so for the 3 of you, you know, we always appreciate volunteers that step up and want to help the town do good things. I think you've picked a particularly good committee. I think the planning board is really interesting, really gives you some opportunity to learn and know about things that are going on in the town in sort of a unique way. So, you know, it is a fun and challenging and busy board to be on, so we appreciate that. You know, your backgrounds all sort of speak for themselves, and I really don't have a lot of questions about that. And I think you're all kind of making it easy on us. So, so I'll start by saying thank you, congratulations, and welcome.
Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Getting to go second, you know, I'd always find myself wanting to repeat a lot of the wisdom that Dave shares, so I'll do my best not to be redundant. But of course, I'd like to thank you all for volunteering, because over my years involved in town, there has always been opportunities for people to volunteer to serve the town, and there's always been wonderful people willing to step up and to take those positions with both hands. And it speaks volumes to our community that whenever there's an opening, there's always someone at the door looking to come in and to give back to the community. So thank you all for your willingness to do this. Yeah, I had started scratching down on some questions, but it sounds like you guys kind of picked your slots already. So it's going to kind of, I guess, make the decision-making relatively easy. So I really won't go too much into detail. And if there are any planning board questions, I suppose I could leave it to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Anderson, who was one of those vacancies not too long ago. So again, thank you all for stepping forward, and I look forward to your efforts going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jesse. Jonathan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, and thank you for stepping up and you know, being willing to volunteer your time. Without volunteers, the town really wouldn't run. Like, it's really important, and I think you picked a great board. I'm a little biased in that, having just come from the board and being on there for about 6 years, and having been chairman twice, and. I think it's a great way, as you already have experience, to understand the challenging issues that come before. I enjoyed kind of dealing every 2 weeks with, you know, especially sometimes there'd be problems that come across you'd have to really like get your head around, and sometimes it took a while to understand the complexity of the situation and act on that. But I think the one thing that Bob Largis always kind of said, and it's stuck in my mind all the time, is like, you know, being on a board like that, you have to sometimes set aside like what you want and be willing to, you know, do what's right for the town. And sometimes that may go against kind of even your own belief system on that. That's something that I hold really true in this position and in that position. And I think that's something that just always sticks with me. And I think it's an important aspect, because in that role, you're constantly being challenged in ways that, you know, you have to really think it through and be patient. So that's my one recommendation. But I think it's a great board to start on, because you'll be right in the thick of what's going on in town, especially as the town continues to evolve and grow. So thank you for stepping forward to be a part of it. It's great to see so much activity with people joining the planning board. Usually we're trying to hunt down people to be on it, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I agree with all of my colleagues, but listening to all of you speak, I'm really excited that we got three real great candidates that are coming forward. And I've said many a times, sitting here, that Sutton, we are one cut above. You look around what we've done in the past several years with the commercial development, with our financial team that's in place, and you couldn't ask for a better person than Jen Hager to be head of your board. She's a book of knowledge, and she's going to guide you and help you, and she's going to need some decisions that she's going to look for your input a lot of the times. And with all the things that we get coming now, you know, we got prime metals coming in, and now that the police station's built, but we got some 40B places coming in, probably one down at Pleasant Valley, and then one maybe or another place on 146, that it's really important. And we have a sewer project coming in. All these things gonna make Sutton for what Sutton is without changing the landscape in a big magnitude, but coming in moderation. I mean, that's been my goal, to try to do things in the best interest of the town of Sutton. So I appreciate all of you, and there's no need of saying a heck of a lot more, but I'm really proud that all of you are here. And we do have some motions to be made, if I may.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Michael Gagnon to fill a seat left vacant by Wayne Whittier until the election on May 28th, 2019.
Second.
Motion been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to make a motion to appoint Bill Tabbitt to the Planning Board as an associate member.
Second.
Motion been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
And last but not least, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Kyle Burgess to the Planning Board as an associate member.
Second.
Motion's also been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Congratulations.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Thanks for coming down. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you on Monday nights.
Don't make any plans on another Monday night again.
Yeah.
Mr. Manager,
You know, I don't see the individual.
I don't see him here.
No.
And we've had no complaints at all.
No,
and
none at all.
no disparity in anything that's been done down there. And I just assume, let's make the motion and get going with it, you know?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the common victualler for Five Guys Burgers and Fries under the new ownership of Mass 5G LLC.
Second.
Motion been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
I apologize. He was invited and he did commit, but, you know, we can't control it.
And now we can get to the town manager's update. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The FY 2020 budget process has started. FY 2020, it's kind of, you know, it's interesting because we are in the process at this point. We have completed the draft capital plan. I'll present the draft capital plan at the next Selectmen's meeting to get the board in the loop with what we're planning to do. We've got a pretty aggressive capital plan this year, but we're in great shape with the funding of that capital plan through a number of different resources that I'll talk about at the next meeting. The governor will present to MMA next Friday. I will be in attendance, so I will get those numbers and ultimately have all that information to present to the board at the next meeting. I will present the preliminary budget on February 19th at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. Fire department grants, they received 2, and they've received these same 2 for a number of years, but I just like to bring it to the attention of the board. One, they're both SAFE grants. One is student awareness of fire education, and the other one is senior awareness of fire education. And that provides opportunities to buy smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors down at the senior center, so for seniors to actually take home. So it's a great resource, and the fire department files these grant requests for the state year after year. So I just like to give some appreciation to the fire department. The Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant, also known as the MVP grant, which makes it much easier to say. I have hired Doreen DeFazio on through a contract, a 1099 contract, to oversee this process and run this grant process. It's essentially a process for planning for climate change and resiliency. The grant allows $15,000 to pay for administration of this grant. Many of the surrounding communities have already gone through this process. They have hired CMRPC to administer this process. Doreen is here available. She's knowledgeable about the community, the climate aspect as the Green Communities Director. And so, I figured we'd hire her. She was willing to do it. And the process begins in earnest at the end of January, where we're going to have a 4-hour meeting here at Town Hall on January 31st. And we're going to have a follow-up meeting on Friday, February 1st for a few hours as well. So it's a lengthy process to get involved with, but Doreen's been willing to take it on, and I appreciate that. The plaque on the common for Lieutenant Ronald Gibson. We received a letter from his sister back in May, and she went on to explain that a plaque had been placed at the front of the common, out by where the sign is, the big rock, welcome you to Sutton. And back in those days, there was no bandstand. There was some small bushes. There was no electrical box out there. Over time, this plaque got hidden behind these objects to the point where the current cemetery commissioners knew nothing about this plaque. The plaque was put there in 1961 by his parents. And at the same time, they planted a number of beech trees around the common, one of which we took down a few years ago, that had become rotted and decayed. And, that's a whole nother story. But so as soon as we got this letter, I got the letter. I got Jim Renard involved, the cemetery commissioner, and he took it from there. He really ran with this. He discovered the plaque. He removed the plaque, got the Dudley Gendron Post 414 involved. He got our veterans agent, Carl Bradshaw, involved. He got Whitensville Monument. He got everybody involved. And ultimately what happened is he placed the plaque underneath one of the beech trees, as well as some additional recognition. And it's a real tribute. He was a lieutenant, and his plane crashed over the Atlantic Ocean. 27 people were killed in that crash, and he was one of the people in that. And his parents really wanted to recognize him, and planted those beech trees around the commons, some of which are still there today, 50 years later, or 60 years later. So I think it was a great effort, and I just wanted to bring this to the board's attention. If you look out, probably can't see it right now, but during the day, it's behind one of the beech trees right on the right off the road on Uxbridge Road, and it's really a statement to the type of employees we have and volunteers we have. Jim Renard and the cemetery commissioners went above and beyond to recognize this individual that nobody knew. He passed away some 50, 60 years ago. So that's all I have for updates, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, thank you for the update. I'm going to set up Jesse on this one. So, hiring Doreen as MVP, I think, certain to that. Just one question on that, and maybe it's too soon. Maybe you don't really know. And this obviously is specifically related to climate change issues. But, you know, we've also done a lot of the work with disaster planning and disaster recovery stuff.
Right.
That Maynard.
That's right.
Friend Mr. Maynard worked so hard on. And I wonder if there's gonna be some
There certainly will be some
overlap or
there will be.
integration, maybe is a better word.
Paul Maynard is involved already with the MVP process. Doreen has reached out to him. Maynard has submitted a lot of the information. You know, obviously, we did the disaster mitigation plan under Paul Maynard's leadership. And he will be very involved in this process. But, you know, he can't serve as the administrator for this process. So Doreen was willing to take up the mantle, but there'll definitely be some cross-pollination of this because, you know, ultimately this, I don't know where this is gonna go. You know, I have an idea of, you know, one example I have is the high school, for instance, is a shelter for storms and kind of emergencies. So the problem with that is that when the power goes out, there's a generator out there. Hopefully that generator runs long enough, and if it, you know, we continue to fill it with gasoline or whatever. But, you know, we have solar panels on the roof. If we attached batteries to that solar panel and created a system where that never loses power, because the batteries create it for a long time, create power. So that's one example, but there are others out there, and other communities in the surrounding districts have undergone this process, and we'll learn a lot from them as well.
And again, I'll leave it for Jesse, but Doreen was a good hire, I'm sure, so. I just need to comment on that plaque. I mentioned a little bit before the meeting started. There's a lot of good things that we get to see from our seats here, and this is one of the better stories that have come across our desk, I think, in a long time. You know, and I think Mr. Gibson's sister, I know you can tell from the letter, she was disappointed when she found out the state of the plaque. But Jim's response to that, Jim Bernard's response to that, and how the whole story unfolded and the results that came from it, I can only imagine that she is extremely pleased with the results. I assume we have not heard from her yet, but I'd really like to hear from her. But all of the people that got involved and the restoration efforts that were made to bring back that plaque and reseat it underneath one of those trees is just really an uplifting story. So they can't say enough good things about all the effort that he put in. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, budget-wise, yay. Good time for us, hopefully.
Yeah.
One would think, seeing how our esteemed legislatures on Beacon Hill, as well as the governor, got a nice pay bump. Hopefully, some of that extra tax revenue will trickle to all the municipalities, because I know there's a lot of us, 351 of us, that definitely could use a similar bump. Kudos to Chief Belcito. He's always looking outside of the box, trying to find other revenue sources. So the fact that he put the time in to, once again, get these 2 SAFE grants is job well done, Chief. Doreen, well, look at this. She's not saving us money necessarily, because I know that's what you wanted me to say, but she's possibly saving the town, which I suppose is saving us money in the long run, so that's excellent. No,
Well, in addition, you know, by applying and getting approved by the state to this process, we're eligible for grants.
well, ironic, that was the first question that I was gonna ask, because I would assume participating in this program
And
would open
that's
up
the one reason why we're going through this. You know, the first round, we said, nah, you know, we're not interested in this. Our time is valuable, and we're limited in our availability. Doreen showed up and said she's willing to undertake it. And, you know, the thought of there's extra money at the end of this, why not?
Well, there's different types of green, after all. But there goes one of my serious questions. But in terms of the length of this process, what are we talking timetable?
After probably 3 to 4 month process. The real process starts after the initial meeting takes place, and it's a lengthy meeting. It's probably 6 to 7 hours of staff time and other individuals' time as well. And then from there, Doreen has to hire CMRPC to do some mapping, and then actually write the grant proposal, and then submit it to the state, hopefully get approved. And so it's a little bit of time involved.
Well, she's going to do a spectacular job. She always does for us. And I can't, best Dave's statements in terms of Jim Renaud's efforts. He is truly another asset that we have in town. And again, to John's point, we're always, cut above the edge. And Mr. Renaud is definitely an example of that. I'd like to thank him, as I know we all do, for ensuring that not just Lieutenant Gibson, but also all those who serve, past and present, are always appropriately remembered. So thank you for your effort in this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no further comments.
Jonathan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as the municipal vulnerability preparedness grant, I think it's a worthwhile exercise. I am interested in understanding more of like what are the outputs of it and the benefits to the town.
Yeah.
But I do think a lot of other cities and towns throughout the state are doing. I know in Boston they've been talking about it quite a bit, especially with the ocean right there. Impacting them and with the flooding that they've had over the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see where Sutton's vulnerable and how we can mitigate some of those issues. And again, like everybody else has iterated around Lieutenant Gibson and Jim Renaud and just everybody pitching in to locate the marker and get it cleaned up and restored and placed back in a better spot that's more visible. Just glad to see that, we took the time and the effort to really, honor Lieutenant Gibson. So.
Jim, thank you for the update. I know Doreen will do a good job. And the fire chief, he's always one notch above, and he enjoys doing that stuff, especially now to get the elderly involved, with new detectors or maybe batteries, and give them some education.
Yep.
And that's really important, that's good for everybody. Regards to Ronald Gibson, his parents used to live at 19 Singletary Ave, right next to me.
Wow.
And I remember him a long time ago. And it's nice to give him some recognition, because we also recognize John R. Henn, who was shot down in a helicopter in Vietnam. His mother was a school nurse, Dorothy Henn, for many years, and we do have a tree that's planted for John out there, and every Christmas time when the trees are white, there's one blue tree, and that signifies the remembrance of John Henn. But Jim, with the board's permission, I would like to take this one step further, and I would like to get the Chronicle involved, and I would like to have them do a feature story with a picture of this plaque, and get Jim Renaud and you, and maybe the letter from Mrs. Gibson.
Sure.
And I would like to do something so that all the years that we've forgotten this, we're here now for them, and I think it's very important.
And we'll send that letter to his sister in
Yeah.
Connecticut.
That's a
and,
great idea.
And I would like to get the Chronicle involved and do a front page picture. That would be my request.
I'll see what I can
It's
do.
a great idea.
Let's do it fast.
Next would be announcements, and we can combine them all if you want. Selectmen's Roundtable and correspondence. Business topics. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just a one item. I guess I'm getting old. My kids are all out of the house these days, so the holidays are a chance to reconnect, and everybody's kind of home. My youngest two daughters in particular are coming home and staying with us now, and one of my daughters in particular has always enjoyed Santa traveling around town on the back of the fire truck. And, you know, it might seem like, you know, maybe a silly little tradition. And she's 23 or 4 years old now, but I can't tell you how excited she gets even now to go out and wave to Santa. And so I just wanted to point out the tradition and thank everybody for continuing to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, well said. And just to add on to that, of course, you know, the Sutton Police managed to capture and arrest the Grinch, who I guess was, you know, giving Santa a hard time. So, you know, both departments are definitely looking out for the well-being of our community. Yeah, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and I really have nothing today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really have nothing to update on. Just want to wish everybody a Happy New Year.
And I, the same, and I would like to mention one thing, that one of our members, Wendy Mead, is not with us tonight, and I wish her the best of health. And now we'll ask for an adjournment.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.